Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who's very excited to be doing an interview with Lauren. Well, I still don't know how to pronounce her last name. That's going to be my first question. Spoiler. And discussing her album, which came out in July, The Infinite Spine. Spoilers, it might be my album of the year. If it's not number one, it's in the top three. You'll find out on Saturday when I do my Stampies live on this channel at around noon Eastern Standard Time. So I'm just very excited to talk with her. We've been going back and forth on instant chat and everything. And it turns out she's a fan of mine. I'm a fan to hers. So let's get this conversation going. And please, just if you haven't heard this album, just seriously, what are you doing? Go listen to this album like 13 times, then come back and hear us talk about it. All right, let's let her in and hope this works out. All right, looks like a little kiwi bird there, maybe. Hello.
It's hi. Yeah, no, I think it's not a kiwi bird. I don't know what kind of bird it is. It's the bird on that Lou Reed album cover.
Oh,
Mm,
okay. So are you a big Lou Reed fan?
Time. Yeah, as I feel like it's maybe unsurprising for anyone who's aware of if pretty logical continuation, if I may say so myself.
Yeah. No, I wasn't thinking about discussing Lou Reed. Now, if I had known that, I would have really put a lot more thought into it. But
There's
yeah,
it's all
yeah,
just yeah, all off the cuff already.
yeah. Well, I mean, the thing about Lou Reed is that he seems like he's not super emotional, like he's just super hard and but really some of his like that Berlin album, I can't listen to it without just crying. Like that's to me just one of the saddest albums.
It's really hardcore. It's really hardcore. I mean, I think um Magic and Loss, do you know this album?
A little bit, yeah, not super well.
Kind of later. It's kind of later, but that has the song Dreaming on it.
Hmm.
And the song is so deeply emotional and deeply, yeah, like actually rocks me to my core or whatever. That's one of my favorite songs of all time. But anyways, like
Well,
slightly off,
good. That's
but no.
no that's great because I mean I've gotten a lot of requests to do this interview,
Oh,
and it's been really cool. So I imagine there's a lot of people who like your music who want to hear this kind of advice. So that's good. But I promised myself I would ask you the least important question first, which if you've watched my reviews of you, you know is my number one question. How do I pronounce your last name?
like Order.
Auder. Okay, because you're bicultural, because you're French and British, and I'm a
I
French
always
professor.
Yeah, I always enjoy I don't know. I always enjoy your pronunciation. Yeah, as you know, I have watched your reviews, which is very always very flattering. But yeah, no, I always find that an amusing part of it. But yeah, that's the question.
Oh, okay, that's the answer. All right, fine. Because I just, I intentionally haven't read any of your interviews. I do a little bit of, I read your Wikipedia. I don't know how accurate that is, but that kind of thing. But I find it's more interesting to ask the same questions. And if you think anything's boring, you just say, "Oh, let's move on." That's boring.
All right, I'll do that.
So yeah. So I mean, do you feel, but as a French professor, I'm interested, like, do you feel a lot of French influence in your music? Do you feel that's something that you sort of don't bring up or
I mean, it's kind of interesting. So I mean, to I guess like clarify exactly what my relationship with France is that I spent all of my childhood there. I was born in London and lived here until I was like 7. And
Mhm.
then I moved to France at that point in the southwest, near Toulouse, if that means something to you,
Of
which I'm
course.
sure it does. I'm sure it does. And I lived there until I turned 18. So it's very much like like the I don't know foundation of me becoming an actual person, I guess feels like. So French culture and France are a very big part of my identity. And I think in some way it does influence my work just from the point of view that I don't write in French because I think it feels like such a towering giant, and
Right.
it's a language that requires such, in my experience and in having written kind of for myself or whatever, it feels like a language that requires a lot of precision.
Hmm.
And um yeah, and it's so beautiful, and so many of my favorite authors and favorite songwriters have written in French that it kind of felt like a bit too much of a monument to undertake, and
Right.
I would like to one day, I think, explore that. But when I think of the way I use language in my writing and my lyrics and whatever. I think English leaves so much more room for interpretation and so much
Hmm.
more kind of like a certain vagueness. The you can kind of fill in the gaps a lot more. I find French to be, I mean, it's so literary
Right.
that it's hard to have the same that same affect, I think, where it's easier
Right.
to project onto the English language. That's how I feel, at least.
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely the French are more insistent on protecting their language, and no one
Yes.
in English cares about protecting English.
No, for better and for worse, but
Yeah,
it's a lot freer for me to like write in English and that yeah, and that's kind of always been the case. But when I think about my favorite songwriters who are French,
hmm
they're all so, I mean, they're so amazing that textually you could, I don't know, print out the lyrics and read them as prose or as poetry or whatever, um, in a way that I think a lot of English lyricism you can't. It's very
right.
rare, at least. I think it's very
hmm
rare. But I don't think that that's necessarily better or for or worse for it. I think it's just a very different craft. I think the English lyricism feels very much like a part of the music in a way, and
Right.
French songwriters for me, yeah, have kind of more that heritage of a yeah poetry.
Yeah, no, the in my research going back to the town in France. So you're from the same town that Toulouse-Lautrec is from.
Exactly, yeah,
Yeah.
that is
I
exactly true.
I I don't know what that means, except that there's not many famous people from there, except I would say for you and Toulouse-Lautrec. So
He's slightly more famous than me. So, but
yeah.
that is the other person indeed. Yeah, which is funny. I mean, and I mean, most of his work was sent back there. So there's this like incredible museum there. Um,
Right.
yeah, it's like it's an interesting little town because it's a very small place and there's not much like going for it in general in
Right.
terms of like culture, like current culture, but it has a really,
hmm
really bizarre and rich history. So it's kind
Right.
of, it's yeah, it's an interesting place to have grown up. Albi is the name of the town, and it's like a UNESCO heritage site. So because it's like
Right.
so old and like
Yeah.
beautiful, and so it's like it was a bizarre backdrop for like just teenage years, I guess.
Yeah, I bet. I just this summer was the summer I finally got Toulouse-Lautrec. So, I studied art history in university and all that, and I was like, fine, and I could write about him, but I think it was at Orsay, maybe in Paris, and I was like, oh, I get it. He's great. Like I've had this real moment. So that's now on my list. I want to go to Albi and see like the real exhibition.
Yeah, there's so much of it, and it's right next to the cathedral, which is the big monument in Abbey. It's like the
Right.
biggest brick cathedral in the world.
Right.
Yeah. But what made you get Toulouse-Lautrec?
It might have been so it was I think it was at the Musée d'Orsay, and it was just one of the paintings that I had never, or one of the works I'd never seen. So, I mean, I'd maybe seen it, but it wasn't one of his more famous ones. And it was just one of the nightclub scenes, and it was very monumental. And there was just this energy to it and the looseness to it. And I think that he's always in my mind, always presented as like a scenester, not
Yeah,
really as like a real artist. And I realize there's probably some kind of weird patriarchal normative something or other going into why he's perceived of that way
yeah.
and why he's not taken fully seriously.
There's backhand
And
as well and all these things, of course. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, so that was really it. I almost never take pictures of art at museums because what's the point? You can just buy a book or look online. But that time I actually stopped
You
and
had to
took a
snap.
picture.
But
Yeah,
yes, that is indeed where I'm from, and I guess yeah. So French is very much a part of my upbringing, but I don't know how much it influences my writing now. I guess that's kind
right.
of yeah.
So I'm sort of looking through my look. So I have like a bunch of kind of loose, goofy questions. Because I mean, the thing is that in my interactions, and especially this with you, you're very light and easy to talk to. But the album, The Infinite Spine, is light at times, but it's also a very, very serious work. So I was thinking, are there any kind of like hobbies? Because you don't really sing about like do like TV shows that you like, or did you get excited when Toulouse won the Coupe de France? Or are you into board games or pets
I
or
mean, yeah. What is levity for me? I mean, I like a lot of very like fun music. I think that's,
right?
and I also I'm really obsessed with I'm really obsessed with like comedy and jokes. This is actually something. it's something that I've had I don't know, that even in my own like presentation in my work is something that I think about a lot at this point in my kind of a, I guess, artistic development or whatever, where I think a lot of my work until now has been a conduit for a lot of the painful things that I've experienced, and it's very much like a kind of cleansing and a cathartic thing. But I am interested in thinking about these kind of things and thinking about how it comes off, because it is a dour project, and obviously it has like moments of kind of uplifting moments, but even that is, you know, contrasted in that. So I don't know. I mean, I have a joke book next to my bed. That's
Okay.
that's that's kind of, this is one of my big pastimes, is just telling jokes, which is funny. And I wrote about this recently, that that feels like a big part of me, that is true. It is hard to translate sometimes through I don't know, mere through music, or yeah, just like social media. But there are a few, I think there are a few jokes on the Infinite Spine, but I feel like they're very personal and probably
Right.
uh, don't hit so much.
Do you
More,
have do you have a favorite joke off the top of your head?
I mean, maybe not less jokes, but more like winks and kind of like things that amuse me, and like putting things in parallel. That I guess, yeah, like there are moments on the record that kind of either reference something musically that to me is kind of like a funny thing to do. For example, I guess on the Ripple, for example,
Hmm.
that being a song which is, I guess, is dealing with the idea of being in the public eye, and dealing with the idea of what it means to even attempt to have like a career in pop music and all this stuff. And it was like kind of important for me to then have like the kind of EDM-y synth leads, and this kind of,
Okay.
it's more of like it's more of like a wink, you know what I mean? Where that
Right.
like an amusing part of the work, which is, there's like the irony of these things. I think that is something that I have, yeah, that I have
Okay.
integrated into the work.
Great. Well, I wasn't asking about the album. I was asking like a general goofy joke, but that actually works way better for the content of this video. I'll tell you my favorite joke. And I don't know how well you know the Rolling Stones, but this is my favorite joke of all time. It's a little bit blue. What's the difference between a Scottish sheep herder and Mick Jagger?
What is the difference? But one's something Shagger, and the
No.
other.
One says, "Hey, you, get off of my cloud." The other says, "Hey, McLeod, get off of my you." So
Very
that's,
good.
and I'm of Scottish descent, so I can say that technically. But
I'm
yeah,
not a Scottish descent too, so it seems like it's all good. I don't know. Yeah, I realized that I suddenly veered into something that was maybe more irritating than the answer that I should have given,
yeah,
which
no,
is,
that was definitely way more interesting.
all right. We'll keep it at that. That's fine.
So the other thing about your Wikipedia, which again, it's just fun to confirm that your parents are both music critics. Can that possibly be true?
It is indeed true. It is indeed
Wow.
true. Yeah.
That,
So
that
there's a rich heritage there somehow.
yeah, yeah, that's a strange. I mean, so I had a friend who was Greil Marcus's, whose father was Greil Marcus's editor. So, Greil Marcus is like the god of music critics, and very few people know who he is, but those who do consider it. So, like that was a little bit of that story, but that must create a weird kind of self-consciousness when you're making music, or do you just not think about it at all?
It's funny. I mean, I think that even the reason that I've talked about it, or it's been referenced in interviews or whatever, is because I think it's really influential on my music making. Not at this point, but in kind of my musical education, because I was very lucky to grow up around like just so much music and so much, and like test press and all these kind of things, where it's just a lot of them being kind of, yeah, faceless CDs that were just sent out to press and whatever, and just rummaging through these kind of things, and made my music consumption really, really diverse. And I mean, it's funny because nowadays my parents, they just write about heavy metal.
Hmm.
So that's it.
Okay.
And I wish that I wish that I had some kind of like nepotism via music journalism.
Right.
Uh, but I don't, I can't quite say as a like, yeah, throwback metal writing has particularly helped me get where I am at. But it has definitely in big time influenced just the range and depth with which I listen to music, I think. And it's something
Yeah.
that because I have, and I guess because of that, I have a really deep respect and admiration for music journalism, and I think that it possibly can. I don't know if it does often or always, but it can be really beneficial to the work, and there can be a really interesting conversation that goes on. And this is also why, obviously, I liked I liked reaching out to you and talking about doing this, because I think that um you are one of the very few people who give kind of the time, the proper time to get involved with an album on that level. And even on kind of a personal level, I find it really kind of it gives a lot of hope to me that not only would, because I know there are many people who go in depth on albums like that, but it's I really appreciate the fact that you would do that constantly for various albums, and also that there is a community that gets built where it's like clearly
Yeah.
people want to engage with records in that way. So that's how I guess it feels influential to me.
Right. Yeah, well, it is a strange thing because I did this channel for so long before anyone watched anything, and now it's just
Mhm.
this wild thing where it's like maybe people actually do want to hear someone talk about an album that they haven't heard for an hour. Like there's a
Yeah,
chance, and there's never going to be 100,000 people who want to do that, but if there's 1,000, that's like and
that's
again,
really yeah.
it goes back to my days when I was a musician, whatever, 30 years ago. And like my dream would be to get my demo reviewed in like the free newspapers that were given out at guitar stores, and nobody read them except for the people who were reviewed. You get 2 lines in there and you'd be so excited. So part of me just wants to sort of give revenge to me, like what if somebody actually listened to my music? But then it breaks my heart because people send me stuff all the time, and it's not like it's bad, right? Most of the stuff people send me is good, but I can't review everything that's played.
It's possible, but no, I mean, I like I think that that's the thing, is also when you know what it means to put something into something, and it's very flattering and important to see how I guess it's received, and that makes me very happy. Yeah.
Yeah, in the end, I made negative $1,000 in my music career because I played my demo for a friend of mine, Noah, and I was so nervous about playing it for him that I
Mhm.
reversed instead of going in forward in first, and so I reversed into his car and did $1,000 worth of damage. And so
That's a really good
that's
that's a very
yeah,
good well, I'm
life.
going for that soon, maybe we'll
Yeah.
see.
Sort of a less interesting question. Do you consider yourself to have a genre? Do you worry about that? Do you think about that? Because it's probably easier if you were a throwback metal band, because then you'd have a specific
Yeah.
place to
I'd have
go.
the I genuinely I've never worried about it. It doesn't matter to me, which I
Yeah,
feel like is like a really good and like wonderful thing about my generation. Um,
yeah, I
because
agree.
I genuinely coming into making these records. I mean, I have obviously touchstones, and there are like keywords that are good to throw around, as
Hmm.
the Baroque pop and the chamber pop and the whatever, like singer-songwriter. All these terms feel appropriate, but I've never been
Right.
concerned by it. It's never been something that I lose any thought on, like really. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that is the greatest gift that your generation has given to music, is just destroying genres altogether. And
Yeah.
who knows exactly how it happened, but it does seem like it's better that way. Now, in terms of terms that I created and then I applied to you, what do you think of Indiva, the term I came up with, the combination of diva and indie?
Uh,
I'm thinking about losing it, because diva is so often like a
there's like
pejorative word.
connotations, like yeah, there's connotations to it, but
Yeah.
I think that it's quite astute in the sense that I think that even the way that even like extremely large singers like I don't know, the Lana Del Rey's and the Billie Eilish's and whatever of this world kind of maneuver their fan bases, and the way they release music and the way that like engaged with is much closer to how one would have expected fans of indie bands to engage with their music. And I think
Right.
that's like, and on that level, it's interesting, yeah,
Yeah.
because I think that
Okay.
pop stardom, as it has been like I guess like expected or known, kind of doesn't really exist so much anymore, except for bar maybe like Taylor and Beyonce maybe, but people
Right.
with like even the really large stars have a much more, yeah, kind of like indie indie approach to the way they're appreciated and the way they release music, I think.
Okay, well, I'll still consider whether or not I keep using it. It's
Yeah.
just it ends up there ends up being a lot of people who really like it when I talk about female pop stars, and
Mm.
so it seemed like that term worked, but I don't know. Every time I come up with a term, I'm like, that's stupid. Like I can't well, so how about so if we take like the songwriting process, is it just
Mm.
piano and voice? Is it guitar and voice? Is it the how do you go about it?
Mostly, mostly it's voice, and actually,
Yeah.
I think all of the album, yeah, pretty much all of that album was just pure vocals, um, like lyrics and vocal melodies and all. And then the next step would be like getting on the piano, on the keys, and like getting the chord progressions out, and then kind of just building from there. But it was kind of insistent on wanting, because that wasn't the case for my previous projects where like the instrumentals and stuff kind of came first.
Mhm.
But on the album, I was really insistent on the vocals being the main thing. I think I read that that's how like Stephen Sondheim does it,
Huh,
and then I was like,
that's
okay,
interesting.
and like, and similarly, and so did Burt Bacharach. I was like
Really?
writing from just like the vocal line, and then
Huh.
so I was like, that sounds good enough for me. So I just
Wow.
and I really wanted to center the voice and the lyrics. So kind of building around that felt like a really natural thing. Yeah. So I guess that's kind of what's up.
That's weird. That's the second time I've thought about Stephen Sondheim in 2 days. He was
Hmm.
the basis for Laurence Olivier's character in the movie Sleuth. And then Morrissey quoted Sleuth in the song This Charming Man. And then I did a video about that that's actually releasing right now. It's just
Oh,
it's weird. Like Stephen Sondheim was like all these, two
I think
times in one
about
day.
Steven Sondheim all the time.
Yeah. I don't really know. I don't know Sondheim particularly well. Where would you start with Sondheim if you didn't have anywhere to start?
I would say like just read up on the frogs. I think I
Okay.
mean the classics are the classics are like the best songs ever, like all the lyrics in West Side Story, for example, for me, it's like the kind of the pinnacle of lyricism. It's like it's just really amazing. But I think for someone who's like maybe wants to get involved with something a bit more like heady and weird, which
Okay.
I suppose you probably might want to.
Right.
Because I think that was like my approach to musicals was more like going for the weird stuff,
Right.
or like Assassins, which is like a mental thing. It's a musical about like a fairground where every famous person who's ever tried to assassinate a president is there, and they're all singing to each other. And like, so there's
Wow.
like really weird and wacky like conceptual stuff that at least was my gateway to this kind of thing.
Right.
So definitely,
Okay, good. So we're getting our sort of song list going over
yeah,
here
exactly.
with Lauren Auder. I don't know if I'll ever be able to say it. I think I'm just going to keep saying all day. I can't
Rock,
stop
rock
myself.
with it however you wish. That's fine.
And then when it comes to the production, so I never know how to read production lists. So it really feels like Deviance is on almost every song, and then Lil Life is on many of them. Like, how does that sort of come together from your singing, and then you figure out the chords, and how does that?
So my Deviant is like my main co-writer, co-producer, as well as Alex Parrish, who are the two producers who appear on like every track.
Right.
And so once like the song is kind of mainly written in my head, I guess it's like going to with either one of these and or both of these friends of mine and kind of just building it up from there. I mean, but it's really nice because I've been really blessed with having been able to build a team of friends who each have really amazing and interesting skills. But when all the demos were kind of written before they had all, I guess, arrangements and production
Hmm.
kind of ideas and all the electronics and stuff, I went back to the south of France with Deviant, who's one of my oldest friends from France. And we kind of really worked on all the guitars and electronics and stuff. And then
Oh, wow.
when coming back to London, I recorded all the live aspects with Alex Parrish, who's really fantastic and kind of a bit more of a studio producer as opposed to a laptop producer like me or Deviants. Because most of the record is recorded live, which
Hmm.
which is like which was a lot of hard work and definitely
Yeah, it's pretty
something.
wild.
Yeah, yeah. I think everything that sounds like it would be live, any real instrument is. and so there was like a really big team put together for that, and and it was a very exhausting and exhaustive undertaking. But yeah, that's kind of how it works. And then there are many friends who have kind of like contributed little bits in that. I think collaboration for me feels so important, and it's also kind of how I grew up making and enjoying music, because I guess like it feels like a very bad word now, but I think like even thinking about the albums that I felt were so amazing, like all the Kanye records that were coming out at
Right.
I guess when I was first getting into music, when I look at like the credits of My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy and how there's like a million people on there, and to
Right.
me, and you can all of them have distinct touches, and you can really get it, and that feels like something that I would like to aspire to, just in thinking about um how I enjoy making music. That's also the thing, is the pleasure of it feels like it's um a communicative thing. And I think it's kind of nice that obviously the ultimate goal for me was to get my deepest, darkest at times thoughts um, to people. And it's quite nice to have, even in that process, there's like kind of a gateway where there's like opening up progressively via collaboration and whatever. So yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
that's,
know.
I mean, of all the bummers of Kanye becoming a villain is,
Yeah.
he gets this reputation as being a megalomaniac, but he's famously gave someone production credits for coming up with a hi-hat sound, which is like, how is like, it's so painful that somebody who was that giving and smart about what the artistic process, that whatever happened to him, whatever he became since, is still like, that is still so cool. The idea, the idea that
Oh,
he
it's
knew
awesome.
like that sound, got to give credit to that sound. Yeah. Anyways, we don't.
Yeah.
This doesn't need to be the Kanye cast,
No, definitely
but
not. I don't have too much more to say. But
no,
no, but on that front, that's something that I really appreciate. And there is like similar stuff on my record, where on the track Hawthorne, it was pretty much done, but I knew that I wanted like a really specific drum sound, and so my friend Helika made the drums for it, because I was like, I know that the drum sounds needs to be different from the rest of the record, and just this kind of thing where it feels really important. So yeah.
right. Also, so I noticed a fair amount. I call it numerology. There's a lot of numbers on the album. Is this something where you would prefer me not to ask because you like it to remain mysterious, or are you excited to explain it here on the channel? How do you feel about that?
Like we can do a bit of both.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I feel like
Um,
that's so.
And then I just randomly realized that you're on the same label as Model Actrice, and I
Yeah.
know King Cruel as well. I know he's bigger, but can you like tour with Model Actrice? Like that would be awesome. Have you talked to True Panther about touring?
Have a conversation about that. They are fantastic. They're a great band.
Just, I mean, that
Yeah.
would be a hell of a show. I mean, I'm trying to be a matchmaker here, but I think that would be like a really strong show with both of you. I mean, I think King K. Rool or King Cruel would, this is too big or whatever. I don't know, but even if all three of them together, that would just be a really good show. Anyways, just,
Well,
just put that one out there in case your label's watching.
yeah, I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. But yes,
Uh,
there was questions. Oh yeah, the numerology. That was the question.
yes. Yes. So I think well, might as well, right? So if we get into the opening track, 33 in Golden. So in my mind, and people criticize my interview style because I have to just say what I think, and then the artist goes, "Yeah, no, that wasn't it." But why stop here? So I figured that was 33 of imagining yourself at 33 as an aspirational age to make it through the chaos of youth. How is that wrong?
I mean, it's Jesus's age, right?
Okay, right. Okay.
Um, and it's also like the number of vertebrae in a spine.
Okay.
And it's like a really nice number. I think that's the thing. Ultimately it was kind of imagining, yeah, I guess it's like the age of death, like this kind of point of no return, where it's like either it's like at this number 33, there's either gonna be like, yeah, you're either gonna come back or you're not. That's kind of how it
Right.
felt. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I could tell you someone who's older, life gets way better after 33. Being
I'm
young
hoping.
sucks. It is terrible. I'm
Oh,
so happy I'm not young anymore.
I'm
I
working towards it. Every day I work towards getting beyond 33.
Yes, which I think is part of the album. What's interesting is, I have a very close trans friend, And I told her to listen to this album, and I said, I think it'll really speak to you. And she was like, yeah, I couldn't get past the first line where it mentioned suicide. It just made me too sad. And so I felt like, no, 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 you have to get through, because the whole thing is about not about not that. I don't know. How do you react to that kind of sad story?
I mean, to me, it was really important to open up with that line. I think it was maybe not the most savvy business move, but creatively, it was impossible to start anywhere else because of the whole narrative arc of it. That it needed to be that serious because that's the stakes, I guess. And I
Right.
think once that's on the table, it's we can go anywhere, we can reconstruct, we can build, we can move forward. But
Right.
there was no way for me to to dance around that topic. I really wanted to be clear and direct, and so I was. So I
Right.
was.
So like
It makes
starts
me,
in the bottom of the hole, the
yeah,
like it, not maybe not even so much an arc as it is just sort of like an ascendance or something, or like arriving at
yeah.
being there. Yeah.
That was the whole idea. I mean, I as we kind of touched upon earlier, even talking about reviews or whatever, I'm very much an album obsessive and an album purist in some way that is probably not so trendy or not trendy, but not perfect for today's means of consumption or whatever.
Right.
But I really wanted the narrative arc, and I wanted there to be a beginning and a middle and an end, and in some way like that just felt like the only way to do it, and it was true. That was what was at
Yeah.
stake, and so I felt like I didn't want to put it any other way.
Yeah. No, I definitely the album feel, and that's part of why I really wanted to do this interview is, my dream, and I said this in the Black Country New Road interview as well, that like my favorite thing about music when I was younger was when you'd get the 10th anniversary booklet and you can read through the history and you could get through all of that. And it does feel that, we've gained other things, like you can be on Instagram and all that, but we have sort of lost that kind of, maybe going back to your parents' profession, the sort of the way that music critics and were able to really do interesting things. And this album totally deserves that. I mean, just like it has whatever that arc is that you're talking about, the feeling of it. It really does have that. And I totally see that that's where you had to start. As far as a musical, I don't know if I made a reference to this in the review. I try not to watch myself.
Mhm.
That's part of the reason I don't edit. I hate watching myself.
Yep.
But do you know the song "Dignified and Old" by the Modern Lovers?
I do, yes.
Okay, just in general, if you ever feel bad again, just that's a beautiful. I can see through this bleakness and gray and sadness, and I won't die now. Someday I'll be dignified and old. As somebody who listened to that song when he was like, 22 and desperately sad, I now listen to that song. It's like, thank you, Jonathan Richmond. That is exactly
Yeah,
true. I am
yeah.
now dignified and old.
It's such a great one and such a great message. And I think it's a similar thing that I was trying to tap into over the arc of the record, which is
Yeah.
like that message. Yeah.
So 118 Madonna is my, definitely my favorite track on the album. I think I said that on my review, if I remember correctly. And what interests me is that it feels to me like it's two songs in one. So maybe you can help me connect them, because on the
Mhm.
one hand, it feels like it's sort of a feminist manifesto about the way that women are, or that girls really are taken and commodified and used up and discarded. See, Britney Spears and John Benet Ramsey was the victim of probably her parents killing her. Uh, and then there's this other bit here where you're talking about, being accepted for who you are, and till everybody outside can see you inside, which feels to me like, I mean, a truly moving way of describing, as far as I can tell, the trans experience. That's the dream, is to be seen on the outside as you are inside. So, how are these things the same song, or is it intentionally bifurcated? What do you feel?
I mean, I think both are very true and both are what the song is about. I think that there is, on like a very personal level, there is the complication of living as a trans person in the world, and then there is the complication of living as a trans woman in the world, and then knowing that even if I were to be accepted and interpreted as and as a woman, that as I wish to be, perceived, and how I experience the world. Even then, I will be faced with this whole other aspect, which is the commodification of kind of uh, women, period.
Right.
And it feel completely intertwined. And I think there's a lot of the reason why transphobia exists. Comes down because it is viewed as a negative thing to be a woman in society.
Right.
So it's almost,
I
one,
get it.
it's almost like considered to be one of the most baffling and grotesque ideas for someone who was like assigned male at birth to then reject that and then embrace something else that is lesser, or or whatnot. And those are the kind of ideas that were going into this track. And it's all, I think a lot of the record is about that, but it's about the or others perception and how damaging that can be. And I think that yeah, when the examples that I kind of bring up on the song, be it like Britney Spears or Jean Bonnet, or I guess Madonna, um these people who, I guess, in some way was supposed to be aspirational figures for women, and
Hmm.
whose lives have been, lives have been distorted and destroyed and taken away from them in whichever way. um and yeah, these things feel intrinsically linked to me. Is like what it means to be a trans woman, what it means to be a woman, cis or trans. It comes down to decisions that others make about your body and your personhood, and the assumptions they make. And that's what it's also like, about the Madonna whore complex, and about all these kind of things.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, then my prediction for 118 was that it was some kind of ideal weight that women were supposed to attain. How was I off, or are you not going to tell me?
It was partially that.
Okay,
So it's
I'll take
partially
it.
that. Yeah, it's partially that. It's also $118,000 was the ransom for John Benet Ramsey, even
Oh,
though
wow.
he's already dead. There's like biblical verses if you can look up. Any, it's like every one of the numbers mostly have like a really like layered thing. So even then, I think I haven't revealed like all the different stuff about it. Because I
Wow.
like that
Yeah, yeah.
stuff. It's
No,
like,
that's great. I didn't know about the ransom. I can't do like serial killer stuff. It's just I could do it a little
like
bit before I had kids, but once I had kids, I was like, yeah, no, I'm out. I'm gonna think about Pokemon or something else. I can't think about
I think it's
this.
a better thing to do. I think it's a better pastime.
Yeah. But but tying together Joan Benet Ramsey, Madonna, uh, Britney Spears, and you, that's very powerful. And that's like it adds this whole other aspect, this whole other element, which gives it that depth, which this it wouldn't be there without it. The song would not be where you want it to be without it. But when I heard it, and then my kids were like, "Who's John Bonet?" I'm like, "Oh, geez. Oh, is that the guy who's nominated for all the Grammys? No, that's Jean Baptiste. This is a very different person. We'll just
Whole
move
different,
on."
whole different person. No, I
Yeah.
mean, I guess similarly to even like bringing up like the S word in the first
Right.
song, these kind of things feel important to me. That there is, it's really severe. Like even when it's hymns of like yeah, of fighting messaging, and like wanting to, yeah, of liberation and all these ideas. It's like it feels so important that we're really reminded of what we're trying to free ourselves from, of what we're trying to be seen for, and all these kind of questions. That it's not kind of just banal pop, like let's
Yeah.
go, you know,
Yep.
because what's at stake is not just like feeling a bit sad, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
That's a good point.
yeah.
And that must be sort of a difficult balance for you to hit, knowing that you're making your music a harder sell by making it realer, but then you have to keep pushing because obviously your art is going to be better, and then it's going to be better than if it was easier to sell. But there must be that kind of threshold point where it's yeah.
Yeah, it feels like that's, I mean, that's always the balance making pop music, right? But then I don't know, like the Manic Street Preachers were huge.
Right.
It's like that, you know. This is and
Yeah.
they were one. I mean, that was the Holy Bible was one of the biggest inspirations for this record.
Okay.
Um, and I kind of wanted to do something that hit those notes and hit that intensity and hit the kind of like gravity that it gave towards like I guess the issues that it faced is and like the emotional issues, and to kind of maybe give it like I don't know, like an ending that felt like the album an ending that felt a bit more like uplifting for me, because that was an album that I really connected to. So obviously there's these influences and parallels, but yeah, I want to, as we were saying earlier, I guess try and make things that feel like they're going towards the light a little more.
Yeah. Well, speaking of going towards the light, I mean the first three tracks, I mean, when you talk about living in a world of singles and TikTok and all that, definitely the first three tracks on here, just re-listening again this morning a couple of times, just it seems so clear, just that crazy darkness at the beginning, and then City in a Bottle is just very light, even though I mean I think there's it's all cancer and stuff. Still, it has this real lightness to it, and it's funny because I talk about it quite often. I do think it's an important litmus test how my 1 year old baby responds to music. So I was
I,
listening to this album, and the whole time she was just kind of sitting there, and she was just fine. And then this song came on, and she had to crawl over to the side of the little pen we're on and stand up and just start doing her little baby
that's a
dance
big
because
one.
that's
Well, that makes me very happy. I'd say that's one of the best reactions possible, right?
Yeah, no, seriously, like we were playing and doing something else, and she's like, "No, no, 1 second, I gotta go over. I gotta do my little baby dance." So,
That's
yeah,
fantastic to hear.
yeah. So, do you care to say what the cancer is?
Not really. Just like
Okay,
just like a lot of stuff.
right. I figured that might be the case. That's why I asked it in such a gentle way. Um, so okay, Hawthorne 81. I don't have any guesses on 81 here. Because the
We
word
can
Hawthorne happens to have a really strong resonance in my mind for a memory
mm.
that's nothing to do with you, just my own personal life. So I hear the word Hawthorne. I was kind of wondering if you didn't have to read Proust in high school, and Les Aubépines is this really important theme in Proust, and French high schools are so good. You might have read Proust at that level, even in high
I'm
school, but
aware. I was
yeah.
aware of naming it. There's also such a thing called the Hawthorne effect,
Okay.
which is, I mean, it's basically an analysis of how people act when they're looked at, as opposed to when they're alone.
Okay.
In fact, there are other things as well. There are other meanings, but yeah. So like, there's always like a few things, but I have indeed read Proust, and I did have to read Proust.
Wow. I just get so jealous of the education system in Europe.
No,
It's
it's kind of incredible when I think back at it, and I definitely took it all for granted, but that's what you're supposed to do when you're being educated, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Although, to be fair, I mean, I don't think I could have understood Proust until I was at least 28 or something. I mean, just the way that he writes about life, like it wouldn't I can't imagine trying to make sense of it at 15, but
I'm sure it
uh,
flew over my head as well.
yeah. So, okay, so it's about the effect that it has of being watched. So I guess that's a theme that I didn't pick up on, probably because I wasn't looking for it, that a lot of this album is about how it is to be perceived.
Yeah, that's big time a theme. But I mean, I think that these, theme intertwines with, transness and also just the reality of like public life right now. And I don't mean this just as like a musician or whatever, or someone who's attempting to be, I guess, like a successful musician.
Hmm.
Um, but just in general, it's we are much more visible.
Yeah,
And we live in like a surveillance capitalist like hellscape.
right.
We subject ourselves to it every day by being on the internet. Uh,
Hmm.
and that's like becomes double, triple, quadruple complicated, I guess, if you then have issues with your own perception of yourself and the way people perceive you. But if it's like it's not, if it, yeah, these are things that like trouble me,
Yeah,
for myself and for others, and for trans reasons and non-trans reasons, kind of thing.
right. Wow, yeah, that's I mean, I don't add. So that's what I should have figured out somehow. But well,
Now,
especially I mean, I guess because if you live in London, the surveillance state is even more
Mhm.
even more pronounced. I remember when I was there, I was like, what's wrong with this place?
Yeah, I think
But
it's
but
one of the worst in the world, like bar Tokyo. It's crazy.
but is that so then? Is that the idea of Saint Horror? Is Saint Horror the horror of like the patron saint of watching and being watched, or is it another thing you'd prefer not to answer?
No, I mean, there's like various answers to that, but I guess I feel very annoying with this. But I think the main thing is in that context, it's not so much a character, it's like a feeling of a saint horror. And that it was like the beginning of this song, I guess, kind of begins in a place of finding some kind of dignity in giving up and in suicide.
Okay.
Um, um, and the way the song progresses is actually like countering that and arriving at a point where actually giving up, there's not, I mean, there's nothing to be proud of about giving up, I guess.
Right.
And these all, and I mean, these all, most of my songs are kind of addressing myself. So I don't mean to, yeah, I don't know. So it's all about me and how I think that I sometimes probably have in the past had, um, yeah, found like some kind of dignity in renouncing and being like, well, I don't want to engage with a world that doesn't appreciate me. I don't want to engage with a world that doesn't respect me. Um, and that ultimately leads nowhere. And I think
Right.
that I mean, that theme comes back quite a lot on the record, is that actually you should engage and that that's a victory and just even being there is like good. And it's like
Yeah.
it's net positive to engage with the world and to be a part of it despite all of these things. And that, yeah, that's what that's about.
Which is, secretly the only true empowering message. Like people always think of empowerment as like you can be the best and you can be the boss and all that, but really just like if you exist, like you've won. Like you woke up this morning, like you say, like every day you wake up, you've saved your own life, to a certain extent.
Yeah,
And I like
I
that
think
this album communicates that very clearly.
that's very much what it's about. And it's
Yeah.
like it's all mantras, you know? Like that's kind of where I'm coming from. It's like I'm writing mantras, A for myself and maybe for anyone if anyone wants or needs that. Yeah.
And then I think maybe we discussed on DMs that you were sort of thinking of Saint Anger as well, the Metallica album.
I have a copy of Saint Anger like around here. I won't go and find it, but I do have a copy of Saint Anger. I mean, it's a hilarious sound. And
So
I
this is
like
where you missed a shot for a joke. You could have put that snare sound in the entire song.
I yeah, I could have. I feel like I've actually considered making versions of songs with that kind of thing in and sending it off to whoever I'm working with and being like, to sound good? But no, not this time. Maybe next record.
Yeah, just the
You
next
know what?
record will be
I
filled
will
with
put
jokes.
I will put a say Angus snare in my next record. It's I cross my heart.
Okay.
I'll do
All
it.
right. I will be listening. I'll see if I can
Yeah,
hear it.
if you
It
can figure it out.
doesn't sound stock. Yeah. And also, a nice tribute to your parents' current profession.
Yeah,
Yes.
agreed.
Yeah, I tried, I live in Rochester and that's where Metallica recorded their first album. And it's funny that you can't even find where they recorded it. Like there's a
Really?
basic idea, but it's not 100% clear, like their actual history. It's very, anyways, it's not Metallica cast.
Not like
So for Ripple, I didn't have as many questions for that song, except that I
that.
was like, it's so simple to start off with the bass and the voice. Was that sort of a conscious like, let's just make a pared down point in the album, or is that just
Uh, I
happenstance?
made I made that song with Muramasa, and I think I just kind of went in and was like, let's kind of make a post-punk song. I think it was pretty
Right.
like straightforward, like at least initially. I don't really know what else was going on. I think I'd written the lyrics beforehand, but that one was kind of just like, yeah, I just want to rock out, and then we'll do that. Yeah, and kind of went from there.
And then there's like some, what is it, like backwards horns? What is that weird sound?
It's a saxophone like played backwards. Yeah, yeah,
Okay. And then who's playing the saxophone?
the computer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you can't tell when it's backwards.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is That's the thing. Is it's a good trick there.
Yeah. Now, when I reviewed Adams, I talked about how it has landslide level of emotions. That that
Um,
it has that.
Compliment.
It makes me think about the way of listening to this album, because I have the vinyl and everything. I listened to it a lot here, and then this morning was the first time I'd listened to it on my headphones in a while, and I just realized, whoa, this song is just such a great kind of headphone song, like close your eyes, kind of move on. I
Mm.
guess this will be my laziest question. So tell me about that. Tell me about Adams and the how did you what because it's I mean I guess it's your poetic side, right, where you're trying to write lyrics, using the open-ended nature of English and all that with these images of atoms and rain. um or maybe don't tell me about it. I can't tell what would be better.
I think I can just say that like that one was made and written during the COVID lockdown.
Right.
Um, and I think this doesn't really say everything about the song or anything, so I think you're fine if you want to reserve any mystery. But but it was just this moment in time where it felt even possible to imagine a great reset. And that's kind
Right.
of what it's about. It's about a lot of different things. But it is about imagining the world being created anew. And I think I started writing at like 3 a.m. during lockdown. I hadn't been living for a month or whatever.
Right.
And that's where it was coming from. It was kind of this idea of what if everything just started up again from nothing? And that's what the song's about, I guess. And also
Okay.
how we can't, I guess, is also the other thing.
Right.
How there's such a rich history that we can't start anew.
Right.
And we have to do what we can with what we've got.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
No,
that song.
that gives a lot. It doesn't remove the mystery, but it does help me to better place it. Just
Yeah.
I mean I have a couple sort of theories that I'm just running back and forth, like trying to figure out, is there such a thing as COVID music, and what is it? And it does help to know. And I think that song would fit really well if we were to try
Yeah.
to, you have to start with Imagine by Gal Gadot and then move on from there and just have all the music that's come out, and that crazy Charlie XCX
It's a
album, and there's just
big undertaking. There was a lot of good
yeah,
stuff. There was a lot of
there
interesting.
really there really was. Okay, Equus. I don't even know where to start. So is Equus at all about the play?
Yeah. Yeah, it
Okay.
is. Yeah. I
Okay.
mean,
I've never seen the play, but I researched it, and it seems pretty heavy. So why don't you tell me the relationship there?
okay, it's less so about the play than it is. This is like some deep lore. But my very first record that I released under this name, whatever, that doesn't exist online anymore, was called Equus and was a concept record about the play.
Really?
It's just really fun.
Wow.
I was 16 and very pretentious. It's a really huge undertaking for some, but that's what you're supposed to be, I suppose.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
there are people who will have heard that. Um, so I wanted to name it that. So the song itself has other stuff going on, with horses. So it's kind of a nod and a wink to the fact that I have made, yeah, like a funny record like that.
Because I started to go on some kind of weird, like, because I was imagining someone your age is
Mm.
very much grew up with Harry Potter, and then Equus was the play where you saw Daniel Radcliffe's dick, and then J.K. Rowling became one of the greatest enemies
Oh,
of trans rights. I didn't like, is there some kind of like triple connector thing there? And no.
and it could be, but there's not. That on
Okay.
that level, I didn't think about Daniel Radcliffe once, but
Okay.
but I did used to like Harry Potter as a kid, so it's all very devastating.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's like, I mean, Kanye was a bigger loss to me personally, but it was very
And me
close.
as well, and me as well.
And Morrissey, I mean, I just did that whole thing about,
Mm.
how can an immigrant be anti-immigrant? It's very, very frustrating. But anyways, we'll move on from that.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
we leave
so
that to.
I really, I mean, the thing that really attracted me to that song was that line about, what of my youth obsessed you, what of my youth intrigued. So Is that from the perspective of the stable boy talking to the therapist in Equus, or is that more of you and your experiences in life? Because
Yeah, it's about
or
me and my experiences. Yeah, it's just it's one of probably the most straightforward lyrics on the record. Yeah,
yeah,
it kind of
okay,
is.
then
It is what it is.
it is what it is, but it's I think important, and I think
Yeah.
it's the kind of lyric that you just don't hear a lot
Mhm.
about the feeling of when you're young, the sort of vampiric, like vampires who act like they're symbiotic, right? Like, oh, we're doing something together, but really they're just getting youth, right? They're just
Yeah.
right. Anyways,
No, I think that's what it's about, and it is an important lyric, and it is also it's all about, yeah. I mean, the whole record's about perception and how you're perceived, and like the way people project on project what they want to perceive on you, and all these things. And there's a reason why that lyric repeats and repeats and repeats to the end of that song. It's because it's important, but it's also the most direct, I think, maybe, or one of the most direct ones on the album. So
and
yeah,
it feels like it's intentionally connected to 710 Kingfisher because that has you saying that you never want to get wiser. Is that was that an intentional sort of play with age and youth or
definitely. I mean, these are, I think, one of the big man, how do I put this? I think one of the things that, for example, led me to knowing that I also had to come out and transition was the idea of not only living now as like being perceived as like a gender that I don't identify as, or I don't like feel kinship to or whatever, but also the idea of like then growing older and being perceived as a man, or being or dying, and then your whole history is someone who's not, yeah, someone who you aren't. And um and those are those kind of things, and I think a lot of people probably relate to that. Is when you're younger, you're much more, everyone's just much more androgynous, and I think, as puberty hits, as one grows older, and all these kind of things, that those kind of signifiers that are traditionally attributed to male or female genders become much more apparent and much more heavy if you do experience body dysmorphia, and that's a big part of it as well.
right? Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that I'm obsessed with, right? And that's part of the reason I started the channel was because I was in my 40s and I was like, well, people just get old. And the way that you get old isn't like actually by aging, it's how your mind goes. Like taking
Yeah,
Marcy as an example, like he just got old because he got rigid, like it's a question of like flexibility and understanding. And I like the idea. I mean, I think you're using the term wise when like real wisdom is sort of understanding that you don't know stuff and so it's sort of a pro wisdom. It feels to me like it's a pro wisdom song but sort of against knowing, if that makes sense as
that's very much what's up. And yeah, I think in the like second verse of that track, I reference like some famous hauntings, or like this kind of something like that. And I think it's kind of part of that, where it's all these things that sometimes it's like yeah, the unknowing of things. Yeah,
okay. Now as far as my guessing of numerology, I'm going to guess that you wrote this on October 7th and that's why it's 710.
it's not 7:10, it's 7:30.
Oh, and then I have it written
So,
down wrong on my notes. 1 second, let me check here. Oh
no,
yeah,
it's
there you go.
I thought I'll just let you know that
Okay.
that was wrong. But no,
Okay.
I couldn't have written it on 7:30, that there being no 7:30th month. But
Yes, unless you're in America, in which case that's July 30th.
you're right. You're very
Yeah.
right. But no, it has whole other meanings. But we can pass on that one.
Okay, sounds good. If you're watching this, put in the comments what you think 710 means.
I'd love to know. Love to know.
And then you can get to 730 if you wish. Now for data 920,
Yeah.
how do you first of all, is 920 the correct number? Did I write that number down correctly?
Yes, that is the right one.
Okay.
That is what's up.
So this is the only one where I imagined a studio boss coming in being like, Lauren, baby, we got a total hit here, but could you just lay off the blood and the vomit? Because this feels like this totally has like absolute total pop potential. But it just starts off with this, and again, that's what makes it great art, right? And I'm happy the way that it is. Um, but I guess my main question is, who do we have to thank for the horns in this song? Because that I think that might be my favorite part of the whole album is the way your voice goes with those horns. And then it's that thing where you go, wait, why aren't they doing this the whole time? Why isn't the whole album just this? Because it sounds so good. And they're like, well, maybe she doesn't want to do that. Maybe that's, or anyway. So who do we have to thank for those horns and pairing them up like that?
So I mean, a lot of the record that I knew before making any of it that I wanted it to be like brass centric.
Hmm.
I didn't want any string. I think, well, there is a double bass on this track, but I didn't want any noticeable kind of orchestral string movements on the record. I felt that I'd done that, and I also had like a kind of notion. It's like a funny theory or whatever, but I was like, I don't want to use strings that are too like emotionally abusive as an instrument.
Okay.
I didn't want to. I didn't want to have some beautiful string sections. I felt like I've also done that in previous records, and I want people to feel sad when from the other stuff. That was kind of how I
Okay.
felt. So, but I still obviously like obsessed with kind of more classical and orchestral palettes. So I knew I wanted to tap into to brass, which is actually the main sound that's consistent over every track. Is like the brass band, which because also I wanted the record to be so heavily about breath and about
Hmm.
breathing, um, which I guess just like is what we've already discussed. Is it's just about staying alive.
Right.
Um, so that was like the breathy aspect and the fact that the physicality of that, and also the reason that a lot of the tracks are much more rhythm heavy than things that I'd worked on previously, because I wanted to feel like the body and the effort of the body. I mean, not saying that it's easy to play a violin. Also, I don't know how, but it's much less of a physically intensive, laborious thing, kind of. So that felt
Wow.
important for me.
So
Yeah.
breath. Okay. So anyways, so now I'm so that like so this is why I'm this is why I feel like guilty because like it's a weird thing to do this channel and to have success and then get to talk to artists that I like and hear something like that. It's just very rewarding because it's like that is awesome. That makes so much sense. This works so well. Anyways, it's very
I'm happy that I get to share that with you.
well,
Because
also it's interesting because I'm asthmatic and my son's asthmatic and he played French horn in high school, and it's not impossible, but like French horn is the meanest instrument on earth,
yeah,
and I always felt that part of the reason that he was into it was because it was when you're asthmatic you think about your breath all the time because like people take it for granted, but you just might going back to Proust, he was asthmatic, you just might end up just not waking up in the morning because you can't breathe. Anyway, so the idea of horns and breath that I
I felt
and
really,
and I hate to tell you though that I think that the horns hit harder emotionally than the strings do. So
I agree, but I think it has less like cinematic and musical connotations.
yeah, it's less
Doesn't
pull. It goes better with your voice. I think. I think that's what it is. Is it brings it helps. I think it complements the strength of your voice in a different way.
happy then that works well.
Yeah.
But yeah, the horns were good. I did No, I think it was. I was gonna say I did actually. There is one track on here where I asked my friend Tom, who was playing trombone on the record, to play a note that was like physically impossible because most of the writing had been done on the laptop. So I'd like
Okay.
I can have like the longest note of all time, and we got one recording, and he bravely did it and was like, "I'm gonna go and take a lie down now." I'm very grateful for my friends who've played on it indeed. But
And that note is on the record.
yeah, it's on Hawthorne. It's coming into the
Okay.
chorus. It's
Okay.
really long, it's really impressive. But yeah, I think this one I just wanted to make a Jacques Brel song.
All right.
That was
Wow.
the
See,
that
now
was
you're blowing my mind again. Okay. Wow. So now I'm gonna have to re-listen to it. We're gonna have to do another interview.
yeah, we'll do on next or whatever. But that was kind of the that my little fantasy was to do a bit of Jacques Brel role play on that one.
I feel that Jacques Brel is the French speaking artist that Americans miss out on the most because they sort of understand Gainsbourg as being like a cool guy, and they, for some reason, they're fixated on Melody Nelson, which is like his 10th best album. But like, if they just knew what Jacques Brel could give you, like, even though he's old style, even though like, I mean, I guess it makes sense that Bowie covered Brel, but I think he's the closest thing that France ever did to projecting a Bowie, and he preceded Bowie. And just, I just want to tell people like, just you got to learn this language, and then you got to listen to this guy's music, and then you'll really get it. So
I mean, that's what Scott Walker, who's like my favorite artist of all time, to me, maybe
all right.
just the best artist of all time. He literally learned French because he like became fascinated by Brel and then
Wow.
translated onto the songs and covered them. But he learned French for Brel, and I think that's a very noble and understandable reason.
Yeah.
So that was
Yeah.
so that was my reasoning there also for like the kind of general sound of that one. Yeah,
And also, we're over an hour. You doing okay for time?
I'm fine. I mean, I don't know
Okay.
how interested anyone will be in watching that, but I think it's nice that it's out there if there is anyone.
Well, so my theory, and this goes for every single thing I do, if anybody cares about what I think, they don't want me to shut up.
Yeah,
So there's plenty of people who want me to shut up, and they don't watch me, and they don't hire me, they don't care about me. But people who like me like it when I don't
yeah,
shut up. So that's my general theory.
yeah. I think I have watched many of your videos, and I'm never wishing for you to stop
Right.
thinking, discussing. Yeah, I think we'll be good. We can continue.
Yes. So is Data 920 related to Brel? Is that some kind of
I
secret
mean,
code for Brel?
no, that one actually is the date that it was written on, wasn't it? Or something
It
like that.
was this close.
But that was the one. But then there's no bro references apart from like the sound and general demeanor.
Right.
That was what I was going for.
See, I'm just thinking of I'm thinking covers album next. I'm thinking you do some Brel, you do Dignified and Old, you do some Lou Reed. I'm just saying.
They're all very good options. I have like I'm after this, I am going to record a cover right now. Um,
Really?
but yeah, so there are many covers down the line. I have a Prince cover that will release next year. Um,
Wow.
I'm about to go and record a Lana Del Rey cover. Yeah.
Really?
Mm.
Wow. And
So
she's been doing so many covers. Well, my daughter will be very excited. She's really
I am doing
into
with
Lana.
my friends from the band Power Plant, who are like a very good hardcore synth punk band from London. You should maybe.
Wow.
So we're gonna
Yes.
have fun. It'll be very fun. But that so yeah, the covers I want to do more of. I've really so rarely done covers because it feels so daunting. But
Right.
I'm ready to do it.
So we two assume too many roles, two. Um, so
Another
like,
one of my infamous like bad business plans was putting too many twos in that title.
yes, I was thinking that was on purpose. I was
It's on
thinking that
purpose. It
that
isn't.
you knew that this song could have hit the algorithm some way. Like it could have TikToked or something. So I sort of figured you sabotaged yourself and just made it so that no one could say the name of the song to make sure that didn't happen. I don't know if that's true.
I think I have this is for all the talk of like pushing away self-destructive tendencies, maybe this is this is kind of where it comes out for me. But yes, this was the popular one, and I did kind of give it an annoying naming convention, but so be it. It's we assume many roles will ultimately be how I would say it.
Yes. Well, I mean, also, I guess that makes sense with Prince because Prince is the one who really popularized having two.
Super
I mean,
cool.
I mean the only reason I didn't like the name thing is just the concept. We assume too many roles. That's another one of those things that just needs to be said. Right? Just we need to whether or not you're saying it the way I interpret it. We do. We do too much. We work too much. And having a song that's just really out there, kind of light, uplifting song, uh, makes you think, yes, I need to assume less roles. But
Yeah. But that is what it's about. And I think that even the confusion and like the kind of the fact that it's kind of confusing to look at as a title was about that. That's
right.
what I was thinking.
So then is Deviants who we have to thank for those the crazy guitar lines in there?
That's not actually, that's my friend Say, who records under MMPH,
Okay.
and that is it changed the game. Yeah,
No, no,
it
that I mean that's like when I heard that, I've made enough music to know that whenever whoever it was that recorded that, everyone must have been like, all right, we did it. The song's great. Like those guitar lines.
it existed as kind of a piano ballad, and I knew that they needed some spice, and yeah,
Right.
that's the spice.
Okay, so then being there, is that a reference to the Peter Sellers movie?
Yeah, it
Okay,
is.
jeez. Wow, a lot more intertextual than I thought it would be.
You're very good at finding these. Yeah, it is totally. It is totally about that. I mean, not about that, but that's one of the references. It's one of my favorite films.
Yeah, I haven't seen it for a long time. Um,
It's
so
so good.
what should we know about what is your pitch for people to watch being there?
It's like really funny.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's what's up. That's what's up. No, it ultimately, um, I think I think there's like a desire to be kind of like blissfully ignorant on this track and blissfully ignorant to your own pain and to the knowledge of the struggles that you're going to go through and the knowledge of like the horrible things that are going on in the world. And ultimately there's just been a whole record of being very direct and like not shying away from that. And then there is a moment kind of where you just have to be like, fuck it. It's
Right.
yeah, right. That kind
Yeah,
of is,
yeah.
and that's what's
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, it feels like, especially with the next track, that it again, you're really, and maybe that's why this album exists better on vinyl than it does on streaming, because some albums really benefit from the looping aspect of streaming. Um, Whereas I'd say this one, the layout, starting in that pit, and then we had
Mm,
these last two songs here where I'm thinking of Chauncey Gardner. I'm thinking of this feeling that you have of kind of freedom that you're talking about here. I mean, this also seems maybe the most direct discussing your transition, the way that you're perceived of. Not much has changed since I took this name. My 48s feel less heavy. Um, and
absolutely.
I don't know. Yeah.
It is, yeah. No, I mean, it's like pretty straightforward, especially on that on the second verse. That's yeah, that's what's up. And you were right. There is like a James Brown whoop in there.
Oh yeah.
I mentioned it on the review, which I did
Wow.
watch. And you
All
caught,
right. I got the two references then.
yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
I'm sure I missed many more.
There are lots, but I was amused that you did hear it. And that is, I mean, that is a Kanye thing, which again,
Yeah.
not to keep bringing him up, but that is that's a really the sample he uses a bunch, and that's yeah. There's a lot of 808s on there that on that record, on my record, that have that are indebted to that music for sure.
Well, we just have to take the good and take the
I
good
think
of the
some,
artist.
yeah, I don't really have a problem uh with like being a fan of like difficult artists as long as one discusses that, you know.
Yeah.
I don't really believe in separating art from the artist either. I
Yeah.
think it's like it's fine that bad people make good things. Or like, you know, it's not ideal, it doesn't make us happy, but like we should be able to discuss that. Anyways, that's how hard the
Yeah.
topic.
Yeah. I to me it's a gut check thing. It's like I can't. I mean, I only listen to the Jim Dale version of Harry Potter. I only listen to. I've never read it. But like, I can't. Like I cannot enjoy Harry Potter. Like I can't. It's not like I don't.
Yeah,
It's
no,
just
I know.
like whereas I can definitely listen. I can definitely listen to Kanye and enjoy it. I don't, as much because I'm trying to be sensitive to whatever. But that's the thing is there's
True.
sometimes like your body, your brain tells you what's acceptable.
Yeah, I had this recently trying to listen back to I don't know if you're aware of the band Brand New.
No, not really.
They're like a kind of I guess like post-hardcore to emo band who made a
Okay.
fantastic like seminal album. Many bad things came out as of like a few years ago. Anyways, but yeah, and it's true that I guess it does just come down to a gut feeling. But and we can
Yeah.
move on from this topic for
Yes.
now.
Okay, so then it all makes sense with my obsession with French stuff here. So my theory on needed here is that you are essentially translating one of my favorite Georges Brassens songs, which I don't know if you know Mourir pour des idées.
I do, and that's like it's big time. It's big time that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because
that's,
I
that's
don't
one of
think people should learn French to study Brassens, because even when you learn French, it doesn't matter. Nothing he says makes sense. But but Mourir pour des idées is just this
the
beautiful song about what's the point of dying for an idea, and if you're going to die for an idea, make it a slow death, which is just perfect sense of humor. So is this sort of an intentional?
I, I love that song. I don't think it's intentional there, but I do love
Okay,
that. Have loved that song for years. But I mean, it's the same idea. It's the same
yeah,
idea. It's like, yeah, I don't want to die for anything.
right. Exactly. That
And
is the
like I don't want to, you know. That's what's up. So that
yeah,
doesn't. It's not great. It's not a great
yeah,
thing to do, and that's like it.
yeah.
That's all it's about. And that I thought was a good way to close the record.
It is. So when I'm looking at everything here, and I obviously haven't asked you about the title yet. I was thinking, because on the back you have all the lyrics written out here. Not great for people with 46-year-old eyes. I need my glasses to read them.
You're right.
But I can read this at the end. The infinite spine is useless. It spirals and offers a way out. Uh,
Yes.
do you want to discuss the title? Because I haven't really touched on any of the body stuff. There's a lot of ribs, there's a lot of shoulders and bones and spines. I sort of assume this is related to transition and lack of comfort with bodies and issues of that. Is that something that you would want to go
That's
into, or?
I don't think there's too much to say beyond that. Is that obviously there is like a kind of inevitable obsession slash fascination slash repulsion around those things for me, because
Right.
they're questions that I've been led to think about a lot more than most probably. Um, and also, so there's kind of a lot of like medically tangential imagery on the thing, and these are all questions that yeah just feel deeply important and inevitable for me. I guess that's kind of what's
Right.
up. Um, and I think that also it's very important to be super clear about that, because I think there's um it's similar to like using bringing up serial killer stuff, or bringing up
Hmm.
the kidnapping of, and murdering of a girl, or suicide, and it's like these are the things that are at stake. It's not like it's I don't know, like be yourself type shit, you know.
Right. Yeah.
That's kind of what I mean. It's about like it's about surviving and living in a body, you know. And then
Yeah.
that's what
I almost didn't even want to ask you, because the sense that I get, one of my favorite things about doing this channel is just when you pay this much attention to music, you come into
Mm,
touch with people whose lived experience is so different than your own. And sometimes, if I'm listening to a young black guy from Atlanta describe his life experience, sometimes there'll be a reference that's made, and it's like, I bet I can't understand it. I bet it could be explained to me, but like, I
mm,
bet that the title, The Infinite Spine, I bet for people who are transitioning or who have transitioned or are thinking of it, I bet that makes complete sense. That's the sense I get, is that even if you were to explain to me precisely what it means, I would never really get it, because it expresses a deeper poetic truth about a lived experience. So I don't know if that's a cop out. That's how I
uh,
feel.
it's a cop out. I would like for it to be that. I think
Yeah.
I won't pronounce myself on what it is, because it is the other thing is it is interpreted and understood how it will be by and whoever listens. But those are the things that I intend for sure.
Yeah. Wow. Well, great. I did just get a text that it was my baby's nap time, so she is now up. So I probably need to get back to
That's a,
dancing around to Data 920 here.
no, that's a
Um,
really good excuse to be going.
yes.
Great excuse to go.
Yeah. But
Thank you so much for having me on your channel
yeah.
and for talking for I guess an hour and a half or so now.
Yeah. Thank you for coming and talking, making such great music, and look forward to I want to hear that Lana Del Rey cover, and
Yeah,
I
I'll let you know. I'll
look
let you
forward to
know.
whatever's next.
I'm making another album, so
Yeah.
that's up. Yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
Like written, it's all written.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
so maybe sometime soon. But yeah,
Great.
if anyone stayed for this long, they're definitely allowed to know that.
Yes. Oh, I'm telling you, it's great. I'm just very happy to have it. And what I predict is, again, in 10 years, I'm going to be getting comments on this interview saying, "I'm so glad that you did that. Her work has developed so much since then, but it's really neat to see where she was at that point and to really go in depth." And it's a, like, and like
And
that one
that would be
comment will be
interesting.
worth 100,000 views for me because that's what I want this to be. So, and then that's what you
Me as
shared with me.
well.
So I appreciate it.
But I appreciate your time, and it's very
Yes.
lovely to talk properly. And
Yes.
you you have a good rest of your day. I guess that's about
You
it.
too. All right. Bye. Oh, I'm still recording. Hey, that was cool, right? That's awesome. That was really great. Okay, I'm gonna just text my wife, say the interview is over. The interview is over. I have to go to Wegmans and do a bunch of grocery shopping. I'd much rather continue this conversation. But again, great album, great music. I'm super happy to have done this. Thank you for watching this. Thank you for having this be a thing that I do. All right, that's a weird way to end it. Okay, I'm recording this on my computer, so there's the camera.